What's going on? It's your boy Bowie here, aka the glaciologist, aka the sub scientist, aka Mr. No More Ice Guy. You dig what I'm saying? And this video is all about the legacy of Mortal Kombat 1. It's been a while since I've recorded footage and talked about this game. You know, I've had some videos here and there as of late, but typically I've been putting out, at least a video a week, and you can see over the past month and a half or so, it's slowed down tremendously, and that's pretty much coincided with the announcement that Mortal Kombat 3 is no longer getting DLC patches, which, in my eyes has been highly disappointing and frustrating, considering especially that the game is not quite finished, though it's in a much better state than, it was when the game first released. But of course, this got me to thinking, how will people remember this game? But then as I thought a little bit more, I realized that a better question is, how should this game be remembered? How should people remember this game? You know what I'm saying? Because how it will be remembered and how it should be remembered are often two different things. I mean, one need look no further than, Mortal Kombat X. Because people should remember that MKX was a 50-50 fest. And that it only lasted, for a brief amount of time competitively. Due in large part to the arrival of Injustice 2, but also due in large part to the game's meta becoming super stale. It was 50-50 Rushdown City and ridiculous pressure, and that's not how people do remember MKX now. People remember that game for being super fun, over the top, dark and gritty and stuff like that, and they completely gloss over how that game had no neutral. So then, of course, that begs a question. How should people remember Mortal Kombat 1? So, let's talk about the actual legacy of Mortal Kombat 1. Because I've been there from the very beginning. So for one, Mortal Kombat 1 was revealed in probably one of the most lackluster fashions of all time, on a goddamn earnings call, courtesy of WB. That's how we first learned that there was going to be a Mortal Kombat 1. Or at the time, we thought it was MK12. It's important to note that this game came directly after Mortal Kombat 11, which in and of itself was breaking a pattern, because NRS typically does a Mortal Kombat game followed up with an Injustice game. That's been the pattern. MK9, Injustice 1. Then MKX, Injustice 2. Then MK11. If we had been going along with the the regular continuity, this game should have been Injustice 3, but it wasn't. So then a trailer dropped for Mortal Kombat MK1, and it was just a character trailer where we saw Mileena and Katana, we saw Sub-Zero, Scorpion, and they had their their ponytails and shit, We had Liu Kang, going crazy. on Shang Tsung. We're like, oh shit, this is kind of going to be lit. You know what I'm saying? Then gameplay came out. And we got our first chance to assess the game's graphics and stuff like that. And boy, oh boy, that's when the bullshit began. And what I mean by that is the player response was very mixed. Because on one hand, people were excited for another Mortal Kombat, but then on the other hand, people saw the clashes. Well, not the clashes. People saw the introductions, and they're like, "Oh my God, this game's Injustice 3. Oh my God, this game is Mortal Kombat 11. Oh my God, Tanya's so ugly. Oh my God, oh my God, oh my God, oh my God." You know what I'm saying? Like, there was all kinds of wild ass criticism. And mind you, nobody had touched the game yet. Nobody had touched it at all. Nobody had played it. There was no beta. There was no nothing concerning the game as of yet. It was just literally some gameplay. And when Tanya got on that screen during that one weird angle in story mode, child, whoo, people's ugliest side started to come out. One thing that I hope that people remember is that this Mortal Kombat was like the first one to have a certified hater base. Every game has a player base, you know, a dedicated group of people that will play the game through thick and thin, you know what I'm saying? But not every game has a hater base, you know, which is a group of individuals who pop up for the express purpose of throwing shade and hatred and vitriol towards a game. Like, I'd never seen that before. You know what I mean? And a lot of the critiques were not substantive critiques. A lot of it had to do with people being quote unquote tired of, you know, game makers going woke, blah, 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 blah. People getting tired of Western developers not making the female characters be goonable and all that bullshit. Because that's what it really boils down to. Like, if you don't make your female characters objectified and you don't have them half naked, you got a group of motherfuckers, a group of males out there who just are unhappy as shit because they think that, you know, women in video games exist to make them horny and shit. It's like, my G, it's all kinds of websites you can go to if you really need that content from your female video game characters. There's websites for that. But anyway, now some of the criticisms made more sense. Like, it made sense to point out that this game seemed more Injustice-like than prior MK games, because it is a slower pace. There is a slowdown before the fatal blows, which was directly taken from Injustice 2. You know, before the characters do their damn their supers, there's a little quick frame where there's a slowdown, and then they go into their supers, just like this here. That's an Injustice 2 thing. I promise I don't plan these things. Like, when I talk about a thing and then it happens on screen, that shit is like amazing. But anyway, so that was taken from Injustice 2. Also, what am I looking for? The introductions and stuff like that. The dialogue before the fight. That's the clash animation from Injustice 2 and Injustice 1, where somebody says something and then the other character replies back. That was taken directly from Injustice. And so NRS was smart enough to put that as the loading screen rather than being something that people skip anyway. I mean, I do love the MK11 approach of placing it right before a match, but after a while, people skip them shits. Especially when you see them every fight, you know what I mean? Here, you have to hear out the dialogue. Though the trade-off is you only get to hear it once, and there's less dialogue between the characters. So, but anyway, there were channels that had popped up on YouTube specifically. I didn't even know what the hell was going on Twitter or anywhere else, but on YouTube I can say that there were channels that popped up for the express purpose of talking shit about Mortal Kombat 1. And I'm not going to name them because I'm not trying to give them motherfuckers no air, but I'm just saying, like, that's what happened. So this game had a hater base, which I thought was very ridiculous considering how different this game was than Mortal Kombat 11, a game that was fucking lampooned and what's the word I'm looking for? Lambasted is the word I'm looking for. Yeah. So Mortal Kombat 11 was lambasted for its gameplay, mechanics, and all that shit. And so this game was very different from MK11, and that was apparent to me from the get-go. So I'm like, why are we not jumping with joy right now? You know. But one area that MK11 was objectively better than this game in was the graphics. You know, one thing that I think that Mortal Kombat 11 doesn't get enough credit for from a legacy perspective is being probably the best looking fighting game that has ever been released. Like Mortal Kombat 11, my God, that game's a work of fucking art. Period. Especially on PC. You know what I'm saying? Like, I'll put that game up against any fighting game that has ever been made. And Mortal Kombat 11 just shits all over that game in the graphics department. And so coming directly from that, this game, it doesn't quite fit the bill. At certain times, the game's graphics probably look as good as MK11, but that's only during particular moments. Like, one moment that sticks out is during the story mode when Johnny Cage opens the door for Liu Kang and Sub-Zero and Scorpion are there, and you just get a close-up shot at Johnny's face. That was a really good looking moment for the game. I'm like, damn, the graphics. But Mortal Kombat 11 looked like that all the time. You know what I'm saying? Not just one scene. So objectively speaking, I do think MK11 does look better than this game. And that was pointed out at the time. Though it was pointed out sort of prematurely, because at that, when the people were first saying this, we still hadn't even seen the story mode. We hadn't seen shit. But all in all, the main picture I'm trying to paint is that before we had even gotten our hands on the motherfucker, the game was shrouded in controversy online, right? So then we have gameplay courtesy of, ooh, that was a bad idea, courtesy of the online beta. and the stress test. And that's when that's when the excitement started coming underway, because we had a return of MK9 style dash blocking, though it was worse than it is now. And that's when we learned that the game was going to be like a tag-based cameo system. And child, though from everyone that played the game pretty much really enjoyed it, the outcry against the cameo system was fierce and swift. And for good reason, because it was another thing that NRS put into a Mortal Kombat game that players didn't necessarily ask for. Much like the variation system before it. You know what I'm saying? People didn't ask for that shit. But, you know, NRS always seeks to innovate and not duplicate. And so they wanted to do something that they hadn't done before. That was a weird moment of rollback right there. Jesus Christ. But anyway, players were less than happy with this, of course. At least the ones that weren't playing the game. Those folks that were playing the stress tests, them motherfuckers was happy as hell. They were so pleased with how the game played and stuff like that. The game was crazy. It was all the good things, pretty much. There were lots of combos to discover. Like, anti-airs were strong. It was momentous. And I think at that point, how many characters were in the beta? Or in the stress test? I think it was just 4. It was Sub-Zero, Liu Kang, Johnny Cage, and Katana. Yeah. So, just those 4 characters. And people were having a ball. I was looking all over the internet for people using Sub-Zero, because I wanted to see my boy. And I seen plenty of people using Sub-Zero, my boy. He was strong as hell, boy. He was very, very strong. I was quite pleased. And of course, this is all drawing from memory. I haven't looked up anything. You know, for all I remember, or for all I know, there might have just been 3 characters rather than the 4 that I'm remembering, but whatever. And then as far as cameos are concerned, I want to say Kano, Jax, and Sonya were there as the cameos. So you had 4 characters and 3 cameos spread out amongst them. So you had 12 possible teams just with that. Of course, people were digesting the way the game played and shit like that. Oh, he should have did the EX one because it's safe and he might have chipped me out. Goddamn. But anyway, so then we got our hands on the online beta. The online beta featured 2 more characters. So in addition to the ones that I named, Li Mei and Kenshi were added to the mix. And then there was 1 more cameo that was added, and that was Frost. So now you had 4 cameos and 6 characters. That's 24 potential teams. And child, there was better movement. I don't know what other major changes had occurred by then, but you know, people were excited for the game to come out, but all of us, by that time we had learned when the game was supposed to be releasing. So we had gotten the news in 2023, if I'm not mistaken. It was like the summertime or some shit. Maybe not even summertime yet, but it was like during like a major break of some kind, maybe Thanksgiving break or some, maybe not Thanksgiving, but like I want to say it was like spring break, somewhere thereabouts. And we learned that the game was dropping in September, and we're like, what the fuck? Are you for real? Jesus, that's really, really soon. That's right around the corner. You know, so we were excited as shit. Then the game came out. And, ooh, I will go on record and say that Mortal Kombat 1 had the very worst release of any NRS title. Probably any Mortal Kombat title in a long time. Because for one, there was controversy about the price of the game. Because you had to pre-order it in order to have access to the online beta. And I think you had to commit to buying the DLC as well. And that was like $100 package. And that's a terrible business practice. That's a horrible business practice. Because you have like $100 package, pre-ordering package that includes the base game and then the first round of DLC. Now, mind you, nobody knew what the DLC was yet at that point when we first learned about it. When we first learned about it. Then eventually a trailer drops that has the DLC on it, and I don't recognize half the motherfuckers. The only ones I know are Quan Chi, Takeda, and Ermac. I don't know who them other motherfuckers was. It was Omni-Man, Peacemaker, and I always forget the other motherfucker's name. Doesn't fucking matter. Anyway, he's broken anyway. Y'all know who I'm talking about. So it was released in a controversial fashion because prior to that, with the DLC, there were more MK characters than guest characters for one. And they didn't make you commit to ordering a DLC package without knowing who the fuck was in it. You know what I'm saying? And so that was a big deal. And then when the game came out, we just noticed that there's a lot of shit missing. A lot of shit. So for one, you go online, there's no rooms. There's no lobbies. You could only play casual and ranked. There's this warrior shrine thing. We didn't know what the fuck that was. We were told it would be on its way, but we didn't know what the fuck it was, and we didn't know if it was even making its way at that point. There was no crossplay. Mortal Kombat 11 had crossplay by the time it was over with. We thought that'd be like a day one feature. There's no crossplay. There's no Wi-Fi filter. And that was online. Offline, the game had this mode, Invasions mode, that virtually nobody liked. Like, we had learned about Invasions mode from the combat casts. And even when we were looking at it, we're like, what the fuck? This is the mode that you replaced the crypt with? A fucking glorified board game? What is this? You know, Invasions. It got better over time, just like most aspects of this game, but motherfuckers didn't like Invasions, and they still don't like Invasions. Honestly, I hope Invasions never returns, because out of all the possible things that they've done, rather than reinvent a mode from scratch, you could have literally did anything that you've done in the past. I'm still holding out hope that they'll do a Mortal Kombat Mythologies style platformer where you get to play as all the characters and you go on different levels and you use the character specials and shit like that and normals and all that. Like, I think that's the easiest thing you could do. It's already a 2D game. You already have the character models. Why don't you just make a 2D, subspace emissary style platformer in the style of MK Mythologies. You don't need to make it as hard or as obnoxious as Mythologies, but goddamn, like, you know what I'm saying? Like, there's something you could do. Or you could have literally just lifted the story mode or the conquest mode from MK Deception. Or you could have just left the crypt in the game. Doesn't matter. But invasions. Then on top of that, the game's DLC was way too overpriced and it was kind of sparse. Game's brutalities were not coded correctly. Some of them had the wrong inputs and they were buggy. The game itself was buggy. If you've been on this channel for any amount of time, there was one big bug that I was the first one to point out. I didn't discover said bug, but it was brought to my attention and I brought it to y'all's attention and we together got NRS to change it. So I'm very proud of that, but I'm tripping as to how a bug like that got into Mortal Kombat 1 to begin with. But this game had as you can see, it was a very turbulent release. Because even as all that bullshit was happening, there was one thing about this game that was like a shining star, and that was the gameplay. The game was fun. It still is fun. It's always been fun. I can tell you I've had more fun playing this Mortal Kombat than both MKX and MK11. For sure. And what's wild is, I have a crew of people that I play with, one of whom is being featured in this video right now, my main man, Wallace. But we got us a crew, and the crew has spent the least time playing this game together compared to the other two that I just named. But I've personally had more fun playing this one over those two. Not because my crew wasn't playing, but because the gameplay itself is just super fun, super open-ended, and the cameo system is the greatest gift and the greatest curse to MK1 in terms of gameplay. So another thing that I hope people remember about this game is that this game gave us endless gameplay content, endless things to lab, endless teams to explore. And even with teams that are established, there are still things to discover about this game due to the inclusion of the cameo system. This game easily has the most depth of any Mortal Kombat title. Even more than MK9. Because one thing about MK9 was, once you knew the character matchups, they kind of were what they were. You know what I'm saying? Not to say that there's nothing else to discover, but more to say that there's not necessarily going to be some new game breaking thing to discover about a character 3 years after they come out, or what have you. But in this game, somebody can put a team together that didn't exist before, and they can single-handedly make that team worth a damn. You know what I mean? Hell, even because somebody had asked me to make a video about Quan Chi and Frost. I don't play Quan Chi. I barely use Frost. I honestly don't even know why they asked me to do Quan Chi and Frost, but they did. And so I labbed them, and I found some shit. And I was like, oh, hold on, motherfucker. She allows him to get a really juicy ass combo from his sky drop. You know what I'm saying? Amongst other things. Like, she makes some of his strings safe when they normally wouldn't be. You know what I mean? Like, she really kind of helps him out quite a bit. And I'll be goddamn if I didn't see people using Quan Chi Frost after I put out that video. You know what I mean? At first that team seemed random, but I'm like, you know what? They're actually not that random. You know. And so the cameo system is the reason why this game didn't turn into MK11. See, the problem with MK11 was you found out all your characters' best combos and best strategies on day one. There wasn't very much to discover with your characters at all. And so once you found out your character's best special moves from the custom variations and all that, there wasn't much else to discover. This game did not have that problem at all. So that continues to this day. Because even though, you know, like for my character Sub-Zero, even though some of his best cameos are already well known, the character is in such a good state now that you can use him with a bunch of different cameos, even ones that aren't like tremendously popular for him to use, like Goro or Madame Bo or even Stryker. Like, people use Sub-Zero with those cameos, but you'd be hard pressed to find footage of Sub-Zero being used with Stryker. Oh, damn. Damn, that was good. But yeah. So this is when the game pretty much first got released. Then, of course, over time, patches and DLCs were added, and then Mortal Kombat 1 went through a period where online games would desynchronize. You would be playing against people, and you just, you know, the game would just crash. The session would crash, and, you know, you wouldn't be able to play your matches no more. And that really had a very negative effect on the game. Tremendously negative. Because it's like people already paid $100 for a game, not even fully knowing what they were going to get in terms of DLC. You ask them to pay $100 for a game, they do it, and then the shit is unfinished. They can't even play online with their friends. What the fuck is going on? That's a problem. It's a huge problem for them. And that was a terrible moment for the long-term health of the game. Obviously, I'm not going to talk about the Cyrax meta or the Kung Lao meta, because no matter how this game was, there's going to be some top tier shit that dominates. And going through all the minutia of what this character was doing and that cameo was doing. I don't need to include all that because that could be its own video. But I would just say that, you know, we had a series of patches, and each DLC character that came out came with their own patch for the most part. So you had your Quan Chi, you had your Takeda, you had your who was the other one that came out? Ermac, right? You had your superhero DLCs. Each one of them had a patch, and with each new patch came some changes to gameplay and mechanics and things of that nature, you know. And this all happened for the first Kombat Pack. Then we learned about Kombat Pack 2, which was dubbed Chaos Reigns. And in Chaos Reigns, we learned that we're getting 3 more characters. And those 3 characters are Noob Saibot. Well, no. What am I saying? 3 more characters. 6 more characters. So we're getting Noob Saibot, Sector, Cyrax. Then we're getting 3 more guest characters, which people would actually, someone like me actually recognized. Because we were getting Ghostface, Conan the Barbarian, and then, who's the last one? T-1000. Who could forget? So there was such a huge controversy, I should say, regarding Sector and Cyrax being gender swapped, because in this timeline they were women instead of men. And I've made multiple videos about this and how this gender swap didn't affect the characterization of those two at all. We haven't fully realized, or NRS hasn't fully made use of this change to them being women, but there's a lot more potential with them being girls than there ever was with them being male. But it was nonetheless criticized as woke and, you know, unnecessary, which I'll concede it wasn't necessary for them to become men or become women, but I don't think, like, people try to pretend like it was like an affront to their character, and it's like, what is wrong with you? Do you remember what Sector and Cyrax were last doing in a Mortal Kombat game? Do you remember? Cyrax had sacrificed himself, and Sector was just a stupid ass henchman of Kronika who got his ass kicked, and whose Cyber Lin Kuei got their ass kicked. He transformed Frost into a cyber warrior, but she would go on and get her ass kicked too. So Sector was just good guy fodder, and Cyrax was a martyr. Y'all would prefer that to them being women? No. I would not prefer that. But anyway, that's neither here nor there. People were still upset. But what happened was, once Chaos Reigns dropped, we actually got Sector, Cyrax, and Noob Saibot all at once rather than one at a time. And people like the characters. They're fun. They were fun as shit. They didn't like fighting against Cyrax though, because she had all these damn setups that would not allow you to play the game. And that's only because people didn't want to lab. But a lot of the early setups that she was doing didn't even require labbing to escape. But that's neither here nor there. Yeah. Hold on a second. Sorry about that. Yeah, so, you know, that was that. And then, of course, you know, we went back to having the DLCs being released one at a time. Conan, Ghostface, and T-1000. And then after that, we learned that the game was ending. That development for the game was ending in terms of content. And so this goes back to the question that I posed at the beginning of the video. How should Mortal Kombat 1 be remembered from a legacy perspective? Well, Mortal Kombat 1 should be recognized for being innovative, for being extremely creative with its cameo system. It should be recognized also as being extremely fun, and in my opinion, being the best Mortal Kombat released since MK9. Because you really do have the creativity to play however you wish, and you can have success. You can take literally any character you want, even the character at the very bottom of a tier list, and you can whoop ass with that character with multiple different cameos. The cameo system should be remembered as a successful system that did indeed allow for virtually unlimited creator expression, player expression, I should say, and combo creativity. There's a little bit of something for everybody here, you know. But the game itself should be remembered as a cautionary tale. A cautionary tale of what happens when a corporation rushes out a bad product. And I'm not talking about NRS, I'm talking about WB. When you have corporate greed infiltrating game development and pushing it out while it's premature, you get MK1. Because it's very clear, it was clear from the jump that this game needed at least another year before it was ready. It should have never came out in 2023. It should have came out 2024. And I'm talking about Christmas 2024. It needed time to get certain things that were added to it later. The game had all kinds of bugs. The game still has a bunch of missing modes. The game had a bunch of things added to it that players never asked for. And you didn't have any alternatives to assuage those players. A no cameo mode would have been very good to put in this game, but that mode was never added. You know, among other things. But WB made a lot of errors, and it underwent a lot of changes, and Mortal Kombat 1 bore the brunt of those changes. And the players of MK1 suffered the most because of WB's boneheaded, you know, ideations and stuff like that. Because it was WB that decided on the prices of these DLCs, decided on the price of the game. It was WB that did all that shit, not NRS. NRS bears a bunch of responsibility of its own when it comes down to design choices and character choices and things of that nature. but some of the most harmful aspects of the game were WB corporate decisions. And MK1 is a cautionary tale as to what those effects are. So I would say that Mortal Kombat 1 should be remembered as an experimental Mortal Kombat that was mostly successful in the main area that counted gameplay, but was unsuccessful elsewhere. And hopefully the results will not be duplicated in the future. I know that sounds somber, but that's the God's honest truth. So thank y'all for rocking with me. I know this video was a longer one. Let me know how y'all feel in the comments down below. Let me know if there was some important aspect of the game that I forgot to mention, because all this is off the dome. But with that being said, I'll catch y'all later. One.